Welcome to Reread. Well, we are finally at the X-Wing novels, Book 1, Rogue Squadron. Let's do this. Corran Horn, it starts off where he thinks he failed a simulator test, and he was the worst of all the X-Wing pilots, but ends up, no, he won. He was the best ever. Oh, isn't he the greatest? Everyone bow down and worship him. Yes, I'm sorry, but it looks like my hatred of Corran Horn is going to just stay forever. And I tried to shake it by reading this, trying to get a nice reset, trying to give Corran Horn a fair shake. But, I'm sorry, the fix is in, folks. I just can't like his character. There's a few things I do like about it, and I do like about him, and I'll tell you that. But, thankfully, that does not ruin this book. This is an excellent book. Wedge is, of course, Admiral Akbar is reforming Rogue Squadron. Wedge understands that he has all good pilots, but some are political choices, you know, to make certain planets happy. The Bothans insist on having one because of all the sacrifice they made getting the Death Star plans. And Wedge makes a great point and says, but the Emperor fed them fake information to trap us. Why are the Bothans so proud of their sacrifice that led us into a trap? They got duped. You know, but then Akbar goes, well, yeah, but the Emperor could have been lying to Luke Skywalker. Which he wasn't, but that's still a very good point he has. Wedge fights to get two people definitely on there. It's Tycho, who for some reason is not trusted all of a sudden. Again, I was really hoping the comic book prequel would kind of tell us why, but it never did because Stackpole just didn't want to connect the two, I guess, which is kind of sad. And then he wants Gavin Darklighter, who's a good pilot, but young and inexperienced, and Akbar doesn't want him on there. Obviously, Wedge does for the memory of Biggs. And, of course, Wedge gets both pilots on the team. Now, Corran says he knows who Wedge is because his father investigated the case of the death of his parents. Hal Horn investigated his parents. Yeah, Corran, but you, according to X-Wing Rogue Squadron, the comic book series, you also know him because you worked with him. Authors, they kind of forget what kind of origins they give. It's not a contradiction. Hey, I mean, he could have known, Corran could have known him through that as well, but Michael Stackpole went back and rewrote another story where Corran and Wedge worked together at one point while they were on Rogue Squadron just a few years ago. Why didn't he mention that? I don't know. I hate when authors get too fancy and they forget their own continuity. But that's kind of what happens here. Anyway, there are so many classic characters in here that I remembered instantly. Oral, the Gand. He's great. He's a great character. He refers to himself in third person. And he goes by his last name if he feels embarrassed about something. And then suddenly, this time I was really reading when he felt ashamed of something, he'd refer to himself by his last name. Jace is the hot pilot from Thyfera or whatever. And he gets more mentions and more dialogue in the first book than I remember, but he's in it. He's the one who has the biggest ego. He thinks he's the best, and at the end, he does get one more kill than Corran Horn at the end. So they have this like personal contest, and he won. I'd forgotten about that. Forge is a human female. And she is well developed in the book, and then later on, I mean, this is all spoilers here, of course, she dies. She's one of the first ones to die. She doesn't even die in an X-Wing. She dies in a Stormtrooper raid. And she's the only Rogue Squadron. There's a few other pilots who die and some guards who die, but she's the only X-Wing Rogue Squadron pilot that dies, I think in her room or something. I think she's assassinated. And they think that's so sad because if she was going to die, it should have been in the cockpit of an X-Wing, which I thought was really nice. And a few others are going to die too. A Rodian will die, and I can't remember. I think another human female will die. I can't remember who it was. Smaller characters are in this too. But Nawara, the Twi'lek lawyer, I remember that character very well. Shield is the Wolfman. I'd forgotten his name. And I don't remember whatever became of him. But I do remember them having a Wolfman, a Shishvin or whatever they're called, in it. So I'm getting to know him a little bit better. Irisi from Thyfera 2. She is kind of, at this moment, she's in love with Corran Horn and is flirting with him. At this point, Corran has also met Mirax. Mirax is Booster Terek's daughter. Booster Tarek was put and thrown into the Spiceman's Kessel from Hal Horn, Corrin's father. So at first there's an animosity between the two, but eventually those feelings soften and a relationship, a love interest starts blooming, and it is fun. It is fun to see the two, Mirax and Corran Horn, get together. So I don't necessarily hate Corran Horn for everything, but there are a few things I don't like. Curtan Lore, who was in the short story from the Adventure Journal, is now back. Of course, he's one of the main characters of the X-Wing Rogue Squadron series. Isard recruits him to destroy Rogue Squadron because he has a photographic memory and maybe he can come up with a way and figure out where Rogue Squadron is. And I think that's maybe how the Stormtrooper the Stormtroopers infiltrated the base, now that I think about it. On the Rogue's first mission, no one dies, which is very rare, and they're all celebrating it, and Wedge is very happy about it, but he knows it won't always end like this. And I like that. I like that they all made it back, because you're thinking, oh, okay, so the Rogues won't die, and then they start killing them off left and right. Gavin Darklighter does not get any kills, and they do some kind of celebration of him being the worst, quote-unquote, the worst pilot there, and they give him a penalty for not getting any kills. The whole thing feels... There's a lot of camaraderie building up in between the missions and everything. The dogfights are written perfectly. Stackpole does a great job with the dogfights here. And the dead time in between, where all the pilots are kind of talking to each other. Either they're razzing each other or celebrating, or maybe getting in fights or arguments, or egos are being thrown around. All of that subtext is excellent to build up all of these characters as individual people that you know and care about. Honestly, Stackpole did a fantastic job with this book and the whole series. But other things that were going on. The great Corran Horn comes up with a great way to take out an Imperial Lancer. But he commandeers a Y-Wing squadron without the permission of the Y-Wing General. And the Y-Wing General throws him in jail just for a short time because Corran Horn's going to get out because he's Corran Horn. He's the best ever. And even though it was his plan that destroyed the Lancer, he did not get credit for the kill because a Y-Wing shot it, not him. And his whole team's so mad as he's spending the night in jail or whatever for a potential court-martial that never comes around. His whole team goes, "You're the best, Corran." Corran's in jail going, "I know." And they're like, "But Corran, you deserve everything. Everything you do is right, and everything the general does is wrong." And Corran goes, "I know." It's like an ego fest for this guy. Those are parts, and it's not like that. It's not written like that. But for me, I felt that way. I just do not like Corran Horn. He's always the best. He's always the best. There's one time he went on this little practice run with Wedge. He did great time. Well, then every other pilot that runs it is reporting better times than him. He turns out to be the worst one. Well, he found out that Whistler has shared, according to Wedge commanded Whistler, his R2 unit, to do this, to share the path that Corran Horn took so that everyone can learn from that and improve and do better. So it was done on purpose so that everyone could do better than Corran Horn, and Corran Horn gets really mad at Wedge. "How did you let them cheat? They rode off my coattails to get that good." And Wedge is like, "Yeah, because it's not Team Corran, it's Team Rogue Squadron, and you need to be part of the squadron." And Corran's like, "You're right. I need to be a team." And his whole team comes up to him later on and goes, "We're sorry. Wedge said we couldn't tell you what we did, but we all want you to know, Corran, you're the best. You're better than anyone. We can never be good without you." And Corran's like, "No, it's okay. I understand why Wedge did this." But they're like, "But Corran, we'll report Wedge. We'll get him court-martialed." I'm serious. This is what they're saying. And Corran's like, No. My lesson was learned. We're all in this as a team. Sure, I am Superman, and you are all peasants, but we're all a team. It got translated that way. I really hate these Corran Horn moments. Anyway, they go on a mission to Black Moon. General Kefri, the Bothan general, has some bad intel. Admiral Akbar doubts it, but sends Rogue Squadron on anyway. They end up losing, that's when they end up losing a couple of pilots. And they get really beat up. A couple of X-Wings get lost as well. The Gand has his arm burned off in the battle, and they can't find a replacement, so he's kind of out for the rest of the book. But then, of course, Cornhorn comes up with a plan that they think they can take Belarus because they're trying to slowly get Coruscant. And so they're trying to get planets that are closest to Coruscant to strike into the core worlds. So they come up with a new plan. They go for it. However, Mirax, who's around, she looks at the trade itinerary because she's a smuggler, and she sees something. Oh no, what is it? She sees that the droid, the M-Tray, who's the droid of Rogue Squadron, who is listed to kind of commandeer goods and make trades in the black market just to get stuff for Rogue Squadron. You know, they're beg, borrow, and steal is what they're trying to do. So he's just making a list of stuff to sell, kind of like eBay. Well, he has listed some stuff that he's anticipating getting, and that stuff is from Alderaan, and she knows where there's a cache, and she's like, oh no, I know where Rogue Squadron is going. This list inadvertently gives it away. And even though M-Tray cannot verify that the list has been given to anyone else, who's to say they haven't sliced that list and figured it out? And they're walking into a trap. And of course, Mirax and Tycho go to the rescue. And of course, Tycho's going to get frowned upon for going out on his own without his superiors, because he's supposed to be under lock and key at every moment here. But they do end up saving Cornhorn, who plays a funny joke on Wedge. Wedge is coming back thinking that Cornhorn is dead, and M-Tray plays what Cornhorn is thinking is his last recorded message. And in the message, he's saying, I knew you would leave me at Belarus. And he's like, wait, how did you know we would be there? That was top secret. We didn't tell you until we jumped into hyperspace. And he goes, but I baked you some bread for when you come home or whatever, you know, to let you know that he's alive. It was a live transmission. And he's like, oh, you got me. And that was really good. That was really good. I enjoyed that. There are some Cornhorn moments I enjoy here. That Mirax found out that from a spreadsheet about where Rogue Squadron was going, it may seem far-fetched, but to be honest, something like that similar has happened in my life. Once at my job, I got a job request thing to look over for my job, and as I was looking over it, I realized it was the same number of positions that we had in our Dallas location. I remember emailing my boss going, hey, are we closing the Dallas location? And she called me. She went, how'd you know that? Who told you? And I went, no one told me. She went, how did you know? Someone had to tell you. Because that was like top secret, because they even told Dallas they were closing the location. I went, well, when I got this order form, those are the exact same numbers of the people we have in Dallas. So I just assume you're folding that division out there and moving it here. And I was right, just looking at the spreadsheets. So, I mean, if you know the numbers, you know your stuff like Mirax did, then no, it's not far-fetched that she would have figured it out. Because, like I said, I did the same thing myself once, felt pretty smart, patted myself on the back. Didn't get to save anyone's life or save their job. But still, book one is a lot of fun. I do enjoy it, and I knew I would, because even though Cornhorn rubs me the wrong way and looks like he will forever, it will not destroy my love for these books, and that is something I'm thankful for. All right, folks, that's it for now. See you next time.